Have you ever looked at someone who seems completely alive in their work and thought, how on earth did they figure out what they were meant to do? I've definitely had that feeling. Today we're talking about finding your passion, not as a magical lightning bolt moment, but as something you can explore, build, and sometimes even stumble into.
I'm glad you said stumble into, because that's much closer to my experience. I didn't wake up at 12 years old and announce, my passion is helping people communicate more clearly. At 12, my passion was mostly eating cereal for dinner and avoiding homework. But over time, certain interests kept showing up.
That's such an important point. People often imagine passion as one perfect activity hidden somewhere inside them, waiting to be discovered. Then they panic because they haven't found it yet. But maybe passion isn't a treasure map with one final destination. Maybe it's more like a path that becomes clearer as you walk along it.
Exactly. And passion can sound huge, almost intimidating. We might think it has to become our career, make us famous, or give every day of life a deep meaning. But passion can simply be something that gives you energy, curiosity, or a sense that time passes quickly when you're doing it.
Yes, and there's a useful phrase there, to lose track of time. If you lose track of time while painting, repairing bikes, reading about history, cooking, or talking with people, that can be a clue. It doesn't prove you've found your life's purpose, but it tells you something is worth paying attention to.
Although, to be fair, I also lose track of time watching short videos online, and I'm not sure that means my calling is staring at my phone. So we need more than one clue. The activity should not only absorb you, ideally it should leave you feeling satisfied afterward, rather than empty.
That's a great distinction. Some things distract us, while other things nourish us. Distraction helps us escape for a moment. Nourishment gives us something back: confidence, skill, connection, or a feeling that we've used our time in a meaningful way. Both are normal, but they're not quite the same thing.
Right. After I spend an hour scrolling online, I usually think, where did that hour go? After I spend an hour writing, teaching, or having a really good conversation, I feel more awake. Sometimes I'm tired, sure, but it's the good kind of tired, the kind that comes after doing something worthwhile.
I remember feeling confused about this when I was younger. I loved too many things: music, languages, traveling, organizing events, interviewing people. I thought having several interests meant I was unfocused. Now I see that those interests weren't competing with each other. They were all parts of the same bigger picture.
That's beautifully put. We sometimes put pressure on ourselves to choose one label. I'm an artist, I'm a business person, or I'm a scientist. But people are more complicated than labels. Your passion might live at the intersection of different interests, maybe technology and music, or fitness and mental health.
And that intersection can be surprising. Someone might enjoy baking, but what they truly love is bringing people together. Another person might enjoy photography, but their deeper passion could be storytelling. So instead of only asking, what activity do I love, we can ask, what experience do I love creating?
Yes, that question opens things up. I know a man who thought his passion was football because he played every weekend. Later he realized he cared most about coaching younger players. He loved seeing shy teenagers become more confident. Football was the vehicle, the thing that carried him there, but connection was the real engine.
I like that image, the vehicle and the engine. Sometimes we get attached to the vehicle because it's easy to see. We say, I want to be a designer, but perhaps what we really want is to solve problems, make beauty, or improve people's daily lives. The job title may change, but the deeper motivation stays.
And that can take some pressure off. If your dream job doesn't work out exactly as planned, it doesn't mean you've lost your passion forever. You can express the same values in another way. A person who loves helping others, for example, can do that in education, healthcare, customer service, or community work.
Let's talk about the word purpose, because it often appears beside passion. They're connected, but I don't think they're identical. Passion is often about what excites you. Purpose is more about why it matters to you, or how it connects to other people. Would you agree?
Mostly, yes. Passion can be personal. I love learning languages because it fascinates me. Purpose often reaches outward. I use languages to help people understand each other. But I wouldn't make the difference too strict. Life isn't a grammar exercise. Sometimes passion grows into purpose naturally.
That's true. And just as a language develops through practice, passion often develops through repeated contact. You may not feel excited the first time you try something. You might feel awkward, slow, or even embarrassed. But if you return to it, your interest can deepen as your ability improves.
Absolutely. People often say, follow your passion, but that advice can be misleading if you're waiting for a strong feeling before you begin. Sometimes you have to build passion, meaning you give an activity enough time and effort for it to become rewarding. Skill makes many things more enjoyable.
That reminds me of learning to speak English, or any language, really. At the beginning, it can feel uncomfortable because you can't say exactly what you mean. But as you learn more, conversations become more enjoyable. Your confidence grows, and suddenly, something that felt difficult begins to feel exciting.
Yes, and nobody expects to play the guitar beautifully after 2 lessons. Yet people expect instant certainty about their future. They try one pottery class, make a bowl that looks like a melted potato, and decide, well, pottery isn't my passion. Give the potato bowl a chance, people.
I would honestly display a potato bowl with pride. But you're right. Beginners often confuse discomfort with lack of interest. They think, this is hard, so it must not be for me. Sometimes that's true, of course. But sometimes hard simply means new. We need to learn how to tell the difference.
One way is to notice your reaction after a challenge. Do you think, thank goodness that's over, I never want to do that again? Or do you think, that was difficult, but I want to understand it better next time? That second feeling, curiosity after struggle, is a very promising sign.
Curiosity is probably one of the best words in this conversation. Passion doesn't always arrive as excitement. It can arrive as a quiet question that keeps returning. Why does this happen? How does that work? Could I do this better? Curiosity gently pulls you forward, even when you're unsure.
And curiosity doesn't need permission. You don't need to be an expert, rich, young, or especially talented to explore an interest. You can read an article, watch a tutorial, join a local group, volunteer, take a short course, or simply talk to someone who does that kind of work.
That brings us to action. A lot of people spend years thinking about what they might enjoy, but thinking has limits. You can't fully understand whether you like something from a distance. At some point, you have to try it. You have to get your hands dirty, sometimes literally.
Exactly. Research is useful, but it can become a hiding place. I've met people who have watched 50 videos about starting a business, but have never sold one small item. The first real step can be tiny. Make a sample, offer help, attend one meeting, or spend one afternoon practicing.
Small experiments are less scary than big decisions. You don't need to quit your job tomorrow because you enjoyed making candles on a Sunday. You can test the idea first. An experiment means you're gathering information, not making a promise about the rest of your life.
That's a healthy way to see it. Try a 2-week experiment. Spend a little time on one interest for 2 weeks, then reflect. Did you enjoy the process? What was difficult? What did you learn? Would you like to continue? Treat yourself like a friendly researcher, not a harsh judge.
I love that, a friendly researcher. Many people are far too critical of themselves. They say, I should already know my passion, or I'm behind everyone else. But there isn't one correct timetable. Some people know early. Others change direction at 30, 50, or 70. There's no expiry date on curiosity.
Absolutely. My aunt started learning ceramics after she retired. At first, she said she was only doing it to stay busy. 5 years later, she was teaching children at a community center. She didn't become a world-famous artist, and she didn't need to. Her life simply became richer.
That story is lovely because it reminds us that passion doesn't have to be profitable. Of course, it's wonderful if you can earn money from something you love, but turning every enjoyable activity into a business can sometimes take away the joy. Hobbies are allowed to stay hobbies.
Thank you for saying that. There's this pressure online to monetize everything, to make money from every skill or interest. But if you love gardening, you don't have to start a gardening channel, sell plants, write an ebook, and create a logo by Friday. Sometimes tomatoes are just tomatoes.
And sometimes a hobby gives you exactly what work cannot: rest, play, and freedom from performance. You don't need to be good at it. You can sing badly, draw strange cats, dance in your kitchen, or learn about ancient maps just because you enjoy it. Pleasure is a valid reason.
Yes, though I'd like to defend strange cat drawings. They may be the beginning of a great artistic movement. But seriously, when we stop demanding results too quickly, we become more open. We're willing to be beginners, and being a beginner is one of the bravest things adults can do.
Why do you think adults find that so difficult? Children seem much more willing to try things badly. They'll pick up a paintbrush, make a mess, and be proud of it. Adults often worry about looking foolish before they've even started.
I think we become more aware of comparison. We see people who are already excellent and forget that we're seeing the middle or end of their story, not the messy beginning. Social media makes this worse because people usually show their highlights, not the 20 failed attempts behind them.
Comparison can really steal our energy. There's a phrase, comparison is the thief of joy, meaning that when we constantly measure ourselves against others, we stop noticing our own progress. Someone else may be ahead in experience, but they're not living your life or starting from your exact position.
Exactly. It's fine to admire someone. Inspiration can be helpful, but comparison becomes harmful when it turns into a reason not to try. If you see a brilliant photographer and think, "I'll never be that good, so why bother?" You've turned someone else's success into a wall.
A better response might be, what can I learn from this person? Maybe you admire their patience, their style, or the way they tell stories. Then you can borrow the lesson without copying the person. Inspiration should be a bridge, not a wall.
That's excellent. And we should remember that people often have different goals. Maybe the photographer wants a global career, while you simply want to document your family's life beautifully. Both goals are meaningful. Success isn't one standard shape. It depends on what matters to you.
Let's get practical for a moment. If someone listening says, I have no idea what I'm passionate about, what would you tell them to do this week? Not someday, this week.
First, I'd tell them to make a short list of moments when they felt engaged during the past month. Not necessarily happy every second, but interested, useful, or fully present. Maybe they helped a friend solve a problem, fixed something at home, planned a trip, or explained an idea clearly.
That's a great starting point because it uses real evidence from your life. I'd add another question. What do people naturally come to you for? Maybe friends ask you for advice, help with technology, recipe ideas, organization, or emotional support. Other people sometimes notice our strengths before we do.
Yes, although we shouldn't let other people define us completely. If everyone asks you to fix their computer, that doesn't automatically mean you should become an IT professional. It's simply a clue. You might enjoy problem solving, teaching, or making complicated things feel less frightening for others.
And it can help to look at what annoys you, too. That sounds negative, but frustration can reveal values. If you get upset when people are treated unfairly, perhaps justice matters to you. If badly designed products annoy you, maybe you care about usability, making things easier to use.
That's true. Passion isn't always soft and cheerful. Sometimes it begins with a problem you can't ignore. You notice something broken and think, surely this could be better. Many people start projects, careers, or campaigns because they care deeply about improving one small part of the world.
I once spoke with a woman who started a community library because, as a child, she had very little access to books. She wasn't saying, my passion is library management. Her real feeling was, every child deserves a chance to read. That belief gave her energy.
That's purpose in action, and it shows that passion can be connected to our past. Sometimes our difficult experiences teach us what we value. But I'd add one caution. You don't have to turn every painful experience into a mission. Healing can be private, and that's completely okay.
I'm glad you added that. There's no requirement to turn pain into productivity. Sometimes the most meaningful thing you can do is care for yourself and build a peaceful life. Passion should not become another demand hanging over your head like a heavy backpack.
Exactly. If searching for passion makes you anxious, take a breath. you're not failing at life. You may simply be tired, stressed, or dealing with practical responsibilities. It's harder to hear your interests when you're constantly trying to survive. Rest is not laziness. It can create space for clarity.
That's so true. When people are exhausted, they may think they have no interests at all, when really they have no energy left to explore them. So before asking, "What am I passionate about?" it can be helpful to ask, "What do I need more of right now?"
Maybe you need sleep, financial stability, supportive friends, time outdoors, or a little less pressure. These things may not sound exciting, but they matter. A plant doesn't grow faster because you shout at it. It needs the right conditions. People are not plants, obviously, but the idea still works.
I appreciate the clarification, Jake. We are not plants, although I do feel a little better after sunlight and water. But your point is strong. Finding passion isn't only about searching harder. It's also about creating conditions where you can notice what matters to you.
And sometimes the answer changes. What you loved at 20 may not fit your life at 40, and that isn't a betrayal, it's growth. We often talk about finding a passion as if it stays exactly the same forever. But people evolve. Your interests can evolve with you.
That can feel scary, especially if you've built an identity around one thing. Maybe you studied for years to enter a certain career, then discover that it no longer suits you. There can be grief in that. You're not only changing jobs, you may be changing the story you told yourself.
Yes, and people may say, "But you've already invested so much time." That's the sunk cost trap. Continuing something only because you've already spent time or money on it. Past effort matters, but it shouldn't force you to stay miserable forever. You can carry the skills forward.
That's such a useful phrase, carry the skills forward. Nothing is completely wasted. If you leave a job, you may still take communication skills, discipline, teamwork, technical knowledge, or resilience with you. Even an experience you didn't enjoy can teach you what you don't want.
Exactly. I worked briefly in a job that involved endless spreadsheets. I learned that I'm capable of being organized, but I also learned I need more human interaction. That experience didn't point me toward my passion directly, it pointed me away from a poor fit, which was still valuable.
Knowing what drains you can be as useful as knowing what energizes you. Maybe you enjoy working independently but hate constant competition. Maybe you like solving problems but dislike sitting still all day. Passion is not only about the task itself, it's also about the environment where you do it.
Yes, two people can have the same job and completely different experiences because of the workplace, schedule, team, or level of freedom. Someone may love teaching but dislike large classrooms. They might enjoy tutoring, creating online lessons, or training adults instead. Don't give up on the whole field too quickly.
That's a subtle but important idea. When something doesn't work, try to identify what exactly didn't work. Was it the activity, the people, the pressure, the lack of training, or the conditions? If we don't look carefully, we might throw away something valuable for the wrong reason.
It's like saying, "I don't like cooking," when actually you don't like cooking while hungry, rushed, and surrounded by dirty dishes. Under different conditions, you might enjoy it. Though, to be honest, I still don't enjoy washing up. I have searched my soul, and the answer is clear.
Fair enough. Nobody has to turn dishwashing into a spiritual journey, but I do think reflection helps. After trying something new, write down a few notes. What gave me energy? What felt natural? What challenged me in a good way? What would I change next time?
That kind of reflection turns random experiences into useful information. Otherwise, weeks pass and we forget how we felt. A simple notebook or phone note is enough. You don't need a beautiful journal with gold pages and a perfect pen. If you have one, lovely, but a messy note works too.
Let's talk about fear, because fear usually arrives the moment we begin to care about something. If you start writing, you fear criticism. If you start a business, you fear failure. If you change careers, you fear making a mistake. How do we work with that fear?
First, I think we should stop expecting fear to disappear. Courage isn't feeling no fear. It's moving forward while fear is sitting in the passenger seat. You don't have to let it drive the car, but you can admit it's there. Pretending you're never scared usually makes things worse.
That's a wonderfully clear metaphor.
Fear may be trying to protect us, even if it becomes too loud. We can listen to its practical concerns, save some money, make a plan, get training, but we don't have to accept every dramatic prediction it makes.
Exactly. Fear says, if you try this and fail, everyone will laugh. You'll lose everything, and possibly a pigeon will judge you. A plan says, let's test this carefully, learn from the result, and keep our current support system while we explore. Plans make fear more manageable.
I think support systems are underrated. Finding passion can feel lonely if the people around you don't understand. A friend might say, "Why are you wasting time on that?" Or, "You should choose something safer." Sometimes their concern comes from love, but it can still hurt.
It can, and safety matters. We shouldn't pretend practical concerns are foolish, but it helps to find at least one person who can be curious with you. They don't need to agree with every decision. They can simply ask, what did you enjoy about it? Instead of immediately asking, how much will it pay?
That kind of question gives someone room to think. We can also become that supportive person for others. If a friend says they're learning something new, we can avoid joking that they'll quit in a week. Instead, we can say, "That sounds interesting. Tell me more."
Yes, because early interests are fragile. They're like small sparks. Too much judgment can put them out before they have a chance to grow. On the other hand, encouragement doesn't mean dishonest praise. You can be kind and realistic. This is difficult, but I can see you're improving.
There's also value in talking to people who are a few steps ahead of you. Not necessarily celebrities or famous experts, just ordinary people doing work or hobbies you're curious about. Ask them what their daily life is really like, including the boring parts.
That is excellent advice. We often fall in love with an image of a career, not the reality. Someone may dream of being a travel photographer because they imagine beaches and sunsets, then discover there's also editing, invoices, delayed flights, and carrying heavy equipment through rain.
Exactly. Every passion has ordinary days. Even people who love their work don't feel inspired all the time. There are emails, mistakes, repetitive tasks, and moments when they'd rather stay in bed. So perhaps a better question is not, would I enjoy every part of this, but are the difficult parts worth it?
That's a mature question. A musician may dislike promotion, but love performing enough to deal with it. A doctor may have exhausting shifts, but find patient care deeply meaningful. Passion isn't permanent happiness. It's often a reason to keep going when the work becomes challenging.
And that means discipline has a role too. We sometimes make passion sound effortless, but commitment matters. Once you care about something, you may need routines to protect time for it. Waiting until you feel like it can leave your passion sitting quietly in the corner.
Very true. Motivation comes and goes like a cat. It appears when it wants and ignores you when you need it. Routine is more reliable. Maybe you practice for 20 minutes every Tuesday and Thursday. Small, regular effort is usually stronger than one huge burst of enthusiasm.
That's especially helpful for busy people. You don't need 5 free hours every day. A small pocket of time can still matter. 10 minutes of writing, 1 language lesson, 1 sketch, 1 phone call, or 1 page of research can keep your connection to an interest alive.
And when life gets busy, be flexible rather than giving up completely. If you can't do your usual hour, do 10 minutes. If you miss a week, don't turn it into a story about failure. Just come back. Consistency doesn't mean perfection. It means returning again and again.
I'd like to challenge one idea, though. Sometimes people hear "keep going" and stay in something that truly makes them unhappy because they think quitting is weak. I don't believe that. There's a difference between pushing through a temporary challenge and ignoring a clear sign that something is wrong.
I agree completely. Quitting can be wise. If you've tried something honestly, learned from it, and realized it doesn't fit your values or well-being, leaving is not failure. It's making room. The key is to quit thoughtfully, not just because the first day was uncomfortable or imperfect.
So perhaps we need both persistence and permission to change direction. That sounds almost contradictory, but real life is full of those balances. Keep going long enough to learn something, and stay honest enough to notice when it's time to move on.
Yes, and that balance gets easier with self-knowledge. The more experiments you try, the more you understand your patterns. You learn whether you need variety or structure, quiet or collaboration, challenge or stability. Finding passion is also a process of getting to know yourself.
And self-knowledge doesn't come from one dramatic answer. It comes from paying attention to ordinary moments. What conversations make you feel energized? What problems do you enjoy solving? What do you read about without being told? What kind of contribution makes you feel useful?
Those questions are more helpful than asking, "What am I meant to do forever?" Forever is a very long time. It can freeze people. Instead, ask, "What feels worth exploring next?" Your next step doesn't have to explain your entire future. It only has to be honest and possible.
I really like that because it makes the journey gentler. You don't need a perfect 5-year plan before taking one class or sending one message. You can begin with a small act of attention. Notice what lights you up, then give it a little room in your life.
And be patient with yourself if the answer is quiet. Not everyone feels a huge, dramatic passion. Some people build a meaningful life from several modest joys: caring for family, doing solid work, learning new things, helping neighbors, and making time for a hobby. That is a rich life too.
That may be the most comforting thought of all. A meaningful life doesn't have to look impressive from the outside. It can be calm, local, ordinary, and deeply valuable. Passion isn't always about chasing a spotlight. Sometimes it's about noticing the small flame that keeps you warm. That may be the most comforting thought of all. A meaningful life doesn't have to look impressive from the outside. It can be calm, local, ordinary, and deeply valuable. Passion isn't always about chasing a spotlight. Sometimes it's about noticing the small flame that keeps you warm.
Beautifully said. And if you're listening and still don't know what your passion is, please don't treat that uncertainty as a problem with you. Treat it as an open question. Stay curious. Try something small. Talk to people. Pay attention to what gives you energy, and let your next step teach you.
So perhaps finding your passion is less about discovering one perfect answer and more about building a relationship with your own life, listening carefully, trying bravely, and adjusting honestly. You may not know the whole path today, but you can still take one meaningful step.
And that step might be simple. Write down one curiosity. Make time for it this week and see what happens. Your passion may be waiting at the end of that experiment, or it may be hidden in the next one. Either way, keep looking with kindness. That's where good journeys begin.
See you in the next episode. Bye, everyone, and happy learning.
Bye.